What's popping, everyone? Got to bring back a kind of old intro, not really, but anyway. Welcome to the Flea Flicker NFL show. I'm your host, Areeb Umar. It's episode 68. Again, we just keep getting closer and closer to Gronk's favorite number. But I am once again joined by my great friend and co-host Amal Ronek, and we've got a pretty fun show. I guess part two of what our last show was, where we had our offensive draft prospect rankings. Today we're going to be talking about our defense, and we're not going to be talking about special teams because I just could not be bothered to look up kickers and long snappers. But before we jump into any of that, what is going on, Amon? How are you doing?
What's up, Areeb? I'm doing well. Lots to talk about today. We're going to be going through all of our rankings, going through all the defensive positional rankings that we have planned. We'll go through the top 10 defensive edge players. Then we'll go through our top 5 interior defensive linemen. Interior defensive lineman class Areeb actually has been notably said as one of the worst in history because it's not very deep at all. So
There's no Quinnen Williams or Aaron
honestly,
Donald in this
I
class.
wouldn't be surprised if there were single digit amount of players that are picked inside the interior defensive lineman entire category. It's not that deep. So yeah, interior defensive lineman. We'll go through our top 5 on that. Then we'll go through our top, I believe, 5 linebackers as well. Linebackers, it's relatively deep, but it's still mainly there's still a big gap, I'd say, between the top and the rest of basically the rest. So we'll go through the top 5 linebackers and some of our sleepers there, and then we'll go through our top 10 corners. Cornerbacks are probably the most stacked position in this draft class. Probably that and wide receiver, I'd say, are probably the most stacked. So definitely look forward to talking about that. And then lastly, of course, the safeties, where also it's not really that stacked, but still got a good amount of players that we can talk about. So we'll list the top 5 of that. But yeah, we can get started. Not too much news, I guess, really. The first news that I do want to bring up though for the day is Alex Smith has announced that he will be retiring, and I just wanted to say that congratulations. He's had a great career. Led the 49ers, I believe, to the NFC Championship game. He's been a great player. Yes, he was picked over Aaron Rodgers, but I think that was still a pretty good pick. I think they got out everything they could from him, and his story is just incredible. The amount of surgeries that he had to go through, the amount of pain he definitely had to have suffered on the field, even after he recovered, and the fact that he could even play games at still a pretty high level and ended up being a starting quarterback for multiple games in this season is just incredible. One, of course, what we all expected. If he even played a single snap, he would have won the AP Comeback Player of the Year, and he clearly deserved it. And he didn't just play one snap; he played multiple games. So I just wanted to congratulate Alex Smith on this incredible career. He deserves to take this time off, and he will probably be remembered as one of my favorite quarterbacks I've watched up to this point. So very happy to say that.
Yeah, I mean, I've never watched Walking Dead, but I'm assuming like the pictures of his leg are what you would see in Walking Dead, just like he was a zombie. And the fact that he was able to come back and even play games, let alone like win games. I think it was 5-1 this year with the Washington football team. They didn't want him there, and he still came back. And I mean, he had the best comeback story of all time. His legacy is probably, I don't think his legacy is going to be, he was the guy who was picked over Aaron Rodgers. It's definitely going to be, this guy was always a winner wherever he went. He brought that good mentality. He was well loved with all his teammates, coaches, everyone. And obviously the greatest comeback story of all time. Probably rivaled with maybe like Adrian Peterson's ACL tear, or he came back like less than a year later and then he like torched the league for 2,000 yards. I'd say those two are pretty squarely like placed as the top two comeback stories, probably in my opinion. But definitely Alex Smith is number one. Again, like his leg was his leg was almost amputated, and the fact he came back and even played a game is ridiculous. But yeah, it's just a great career to him. And I think we'll probably end up seeing him be a coach. Just seeing, I don't want to like give him all the credit for helping Patrick Mahomes develop into the guy that he was, but Patrick Mahomes gives him a ton of credit. So I'll give that, I would sort of default to Patrick Mahomes in that regard, that he knows what he's talking about. And he's not just saying it to be like a good friend. I think Alex Smith can definitely be a good coach if he wants to. And I think we'll end up seeing that eventually, probably not anytime soon, but eventually we might see him as a coach somewhere.
Yeah, I
But
mean, Patrick,
yeah,
his statistical best career was his last year in Kansas City. So maybe Patrick Mahomes might be right there.
yeah. And I guess not even the last. There's only two pieces of news really we're talking about. Mike Tomlin, head coach of the Pittsburgh Steelers, got a 3-year contract extension. And to that, I say, no duh. I think we can move on.
Yeah, there's absolutely like no surprise here. People that are saying that he doesn't deserve it. I mean, like the dude has never gone below 500 and has won a Super Bowl. Never. I mean, it's insane.
And he had Duck Hodges playing
Yeah,
quarterback last
and
year.
Bill Belichick this past year did go under 500. So I'm not gonna obviously compare. Like obviously, Bill Belichick has 6 rings. Tomlin has 1, but I'm just saying like this man does he definitely deserves to keep his job. I don't want to hear any type of controversy that he doesn't deserve this extension. Great on him, and yeah, we can move on. There's honestly nothing much to be said about this.
Yeah, and we can go right into our NFL draft defensive rankings, starting with defensive linemen and more specifically edge rushers and all. And we are very much going to be different, especially on some of these players. Cough, cough, Gregory Rousseau. We're definitely going to be on opposite sides of the fence for some of these players. But I think we just jump into our rankings, and these are going to be consensus rankings. So I'm taking my rankings and Amal's rankings and averaging them together. And we're going to end up getting some ties, and such is the case with the first two players here. We both have Jaylen Phillips, the edge out of Miami, and Kwity Pae, the edge out of Michigan, tied. So we have them tied at for number one. I just want to start with Jaylen Phillips because he's my number one guy, and you have Kwity Pae at 2, and then we have them. We have Kwity Pae at 1, and then interchangeable at number 1 and 2. What I like about Jaylen Phillips, dude, this guy he's not like a JJ Watt type of prospect, Nick Bosa type of prospect. But in his own regard, I think he's very technically sound, and he is a great athlete. He's just more than good enough to get enough pressures. He has great technique. He's a smart pass rusher. He knows how to set up his moves, and he gets better as the game goes on, which just shows like he's not getting better because he's athletically superior. Because yeah, he is an athletic, like he is a good athlete, but I don't think it's that he's athletically superior. Superior. He just knows how to use moves and set up previous moves based on like other moves. He's just very smart in that regard. My only knocks against him are really I don't know how high of a ceiling of a player he can be. I think he can definitely be like a double digit ceiling player, but this edge class, in my opinion, is weak or weaker than other edge classes, because in previous edge classes we've had the Bosa twins, the Bosa brothers. We've had them ranked like top 5 players in their class. Chase Young, top 5. Myles Garrett, literally number 1. Versus like Jaylen Phillips and Kwity Pae, I had them ranked in the teens, like I think 10 to 11 through 15. That's where I rank them. Like they're good players. I just don't know how high of a ceiling they can actually ever attain, just because of their athleticism and all that. And also, Jaylen Phillips, he has a concussion history. I mean, I think he was forced to retire previously due to concussions, and then ended up coming back, transferring to Miami, and then he ended up balling out in his senior year, or not senior, in 2020, whatever he was. I think he was a junior, but he ended up balling out there. And I really like Jaylen Phillips. You can talk about Kwity Pae though, because you're higher on Kwity Pae than I am.
Yeah, I
By
mean,
one.
I guess the main difference, I guess, between them, I like explosiveness of Kwity Pae as a pure edge rusher more than I guess Jaylen Phillips, and also like you brought up, like I think as your last point, I think Jaylen Phillips does have the injury risk, And it wasn't even with Miami that he had a lot of the injury risk. I believe it was when he was with UCLA he had those injury risks there. So that I think that was my major thing that was holding me back for Jaelen Phillips. But Jaelen Phillips is an absolute monster too. I would love to have either or on the team. I think Kwity Pae, I think if he I think he has great short choppy steps. I definitely see that in his game. But I think he needs to I think he's got great determination. I think I just like what I see from him. I think as an overall prospect, I think he's a bit raw, but I think he's got all the intangibles to be a true edge, true best player on the defense type of potential. That's what I like with Kwity Pae. Jaelen Phillips has the same thing. I think Jaelen Phillips measurables are like incredible. So he's like tall, he's explosive. So I'm also a fan of him too. But I think the only thing that I have with him is his hands, I guess, are the only weakness that I see in his game compared to Kwity Pae. So, but I think his speed is insane. His burst is great as well. But yeah, and then durability. So that's the only thing that's holding me back there. But yeah, Kwity Pae at 1 for me, Phillips at 2. You have Phillips at 1, Kwity Pae at 2. They're both most likely going to be picked within like 5 picks, if anything. I expect both to be
Oh
picked
yeah,
by the
for
top
sure.
20. By the top 20, they should both be picked. Yeah.
What I liked about Kwity Pae is I think he's a really sound a run defender, and I think he knows gap discipline. He knows how to squeeze the space when he has to, and also I think you said him being raw uh, as like a factor. I think he is raw in the pass game. I think sometimes his leverage just isn't there, his bull rush isn't there, and you see those factors definitely at play for him. But I think those are things that can be coached up. I think he has all the like physical tools to again be another double-digit sack guy. He just needs to be coached up. I just think Kwity Pae needs more coaching than Jaelen Phillips, which is why I have Jaelen Phillips at 1. And we talked about explosiveness, right? I think number 3, we have arguably the most explosive pass rusher in this year's class, maybe by a large margin, actually, too. In Azeez Ojulari, the edge rusher from Georgia. What I love about Azeez Ojulari, we both have him at 3, by the way. He's extremely fast, the best speed rusher in this class by like a mile. His entire game is speed rushing around the edge, and he's a bit lighter. I think he's like 240. But the thing is, he comes off the edge so damn quick that he can turn that speed into like a pretty decent bull rush as well. It's like his bull rushing isn't based off him being powerful on his own. It's just based off him being that damn quick at coming off the edge. What I didn't like about him, first of all, I think he can be a phenomenal pass rusher, and he has really high pass rushing ceiling just in that regard. But what I didn't like, I just think his run game just wasn't as as prevalent in his film, purely to the fact that he's 240 versus Jaelen Phillips is like 260. Kwity Pae is, I think, also 260. Those guys can definitely hold against the run, hold up against these pass rushers, run blockers rather. Versus, I don't know necessarily if Azeez Ojulari can do that as effectively. So I think as a pass rusher, Azeez Ojulari has arguably a higher ceiling than both those guys. It's just that I think at some point, especially early in his career, he might just end up being like a third down pass rusher, and you might just have to take him off the field, just because he doesn't give you the best utility in the run game.
Yeah, so for me, Azeez Ojulari is a monster, by the way. I think he's also, like you said, he's probably one of the most dynamic edges in this class. But I think the biggest weakness thing that's holding him back is I think his strength, like you said. I think he's probably he can't survive or even the NFL when he's 240 pounds. So he's got to add weight to handle the strength of these offensive linemen that are there. Um, and I think once he adds strength, he can convert his speed, which is incredible, uh, and power through those offensive linemen. And I think that's the only thing that I guess is really holding him back. Otherwise, yeah, the burst is just like elite burst, but he probably has the best burst in this entire class. So, um, shooting right off the gaps, I think he does well. But like I said before, I think the only thing that's there is his size. Yeah, I think he needs to gain more weight. And other than that, he's incredible. He's a very athletic, great hands, uh, flexible. I think he can. I think I like what I saw from film when I watched Azeez Ojulari. So yeah, we can move on from that.
Yep, edge number 4 or consensus number 4, Ronnie Perkins out of Oklahoma. I have him at 5. You have him at 6, I believe. What I like about Ronnie Perkins is when I was watching Oklahoma State and I was watching the offensive lineman Tevin Jenkins, right? And we all know Tevin Jenkins, he's extremely strong. He's a mauler. But the only guy I saw him give any trouble to was Ronnie Perkins from Oklahoma. Ronnie Perkins, first of all, we're going to talk about hustle guys. There's 2 other hustle guys in this list. One, I think, Joseph Ossai out of Texas, and then the other one, Joe Tryon. Both those guys have extremely high hustle and motors. Same thing with Ronnie Perkins. He is always running after the ball. He's always has playing with high energy. He's listed at 6'3", 247. His power is definitely there. You can see his initial burst, all that. I just think as a sort of as a ball of clay, if you want to use that term, like if you want to sort of make him a mold him into someone, I think he has a lot of physical tools to do that. Like I said, good hustle. He has a good blend of speed and power. I cannot speak today, but I think he has all the physical tools to be a pretty impact player. I'm great at setting an edge as well in the run game. So I really like Ronnie Perkins, and he was someone I ended up watching. Like I wasted my time watching like Gregory Rousseau before I ended up watching Ronnie Perkins. Ronnie Perkins to me was just a way better player. He had way more impact than a lot of these other guys. And he sort of went under the radar, I think, just because I think we all heard the flashier names and he sort of went under the radar because of that. But yeah, I like Ronnie Perkins. I just think only thing that's really holding him back for me is he just needs to get better at like coming up with a plan and coming up with more pass rushing moves, maybe a more inside move. But yeah, I think he has all the tools to be a pretty impactful player at the next level.
Yeah, so for me, Ronnie Perkins, I had him at 6. He's incredibly quick. He's quite agile. I think he's quick at the snap of the ball. Flexibility is pretty good as well. He and I think just because of that flexibility and the speed that he has, he creates pressure on quarterbacks like just like that. It's very easy for him. I think the my main issue with him, I guess, is the same issue that I had with Azeez Ojulari is his play strength, and I think he can't he sometimes fails to shed blocks. I definitely saw that in film. So his hand usage, I guess is the only thing that needs help. Um, but yeah, other than that, I like what I see from Ronnie Perkins.
I disagree with you. I think his power is fine, but I can understand maybe disengaging from blocks. Like I can kind of understand that aspect of it, but
No, I
no
think
matter what,
I think the reason that you're probably saying that is you don't see it because he has a lot of momentum from the speed.
true. Maybe
So you definitely see that probably when you're
I can
looking at
kind of
film. But I mean, he's just like there are. It's very like I don't know how to say this, but like his, against the run, it looks like he has a lot of trouble, honestly, shedding through blocks, and I
yeah,
guess that's
fair
that's
enough.
where that's where I saw a bunch of problems there.
Yeah, and I don't know if that's necessarily power versus just hand usage and technique, but we can agree to disagree. I think his play strength is fine, but I can also understand getting off blocks in the run game. Now, tied at number 5, we have 2 players. One, I'm going to talk about him first. Joe Tryon, the edge out of Washington, 6'5", 262. And I just talked about like, finding a template and molding the tools of someone into a great edge rusher. Joe Tryon has all the tools, in my opinion. Now, first of all, his initial get off, first 2-3 steps, he has that burst, right? He has that power combination. He has a great inside swim move as well, which is like you want to see. You want to see someone have some sort of a pass rushing moves. He has something in his repertoire. And by the way, before I dive into him more, I have him at 6, by the way, and Amal has him at 7. And he is our consensus edge, tied for 5 with another guy. And I like his bend around the edge. Some people say he's not a finisher, Amal, and I can see that, but I would also point to the fact that Washington just didn't use their players well whatsoever. They ran like a 3 down scheme where it was like they only had 3 players on the line at all time. And that hurt both the 2 players what we're going to end up talking about. Joe Tryon, the first one, and Levi Onwuzurike out of Washington as well, the defensive tackle, because it's going to be harder to finish when you have less bodies to help you finish. Like both these guys were getting double teamed a ton. And I don't know if Joe Tryon necessarily didn't finish because of his own skills or because he was getting double teamed all the time. And I think he handled the double teams pretty well, was able to split them occasionally. Um, yeah, so I like all that. I think some knocks on him probably would be pad level and just being a bit more consistent. But again, he's someone I think has all the athletic tools, and if you can sort of mold him into a player you want him to be, I think he can be a really high ceiling player. Just because I think he has the get off, he has the power. You just need to coach that into him more consistently and make sure he doesn't get up too high and he actually uses his leverage well. But I like Joe Tryon.
Yeah, so for me, Joe Tryon, I think he has great size, great length. From the I think yeah, I mean he's like 6'5", 260. Uh Arm length is there as well. So I think overall he's got the right build. Strength is on point too. Shredding blocks he does extremely well. He's got good speed, good quickness, good agility. So his athleticism is also there. My thing with him, Areeb, I think along with the weaknesses that you added on, I think sometimes he tends to be a bit passive when he's playing at the edge. I think that's a weakness that I saw. And the other thing, Areeb, is that there wasn't a lot of film on Joe Tryon. I think
Yeah, it's 2019 film because he opted out.
he opted out last year, and also like he was developing he only started to show true promise at the end of that 2019 season. So like honestly, you can probably say there's like what 5 good games out of him, maybe 4 to 5 good games out of Joe Tryon, and you can't go hard. It's very hard to judge only off of 4 to 5 games how good an edge player will be. That too from a year and a half ago. So, and on top of that, that goes on to show that he's a raw prospect. So he definitely still needs to be developed into becoming a true edge player. But he has everything. He has all the tools. His physicality's there. But yeah, I mean, if he just develops and into that true defensive edge, I think he's going to be a player to watch out for.
Yeah, and then tied with him for number 5 was Payton Turner, the edge out of Houston, 6'5", 270. What I liked about Payton Turner is, first of all, I'm going to compare him directly to the guy I don't want to talk about, Gregory Rousseau, who I don't have him on my top 10. Spoiler alert. I have him down here at number 12, actually. So just outside of my top 10. He'll go higher just because people are going to be infatuated with his length and all that. But when I look at Payton Turner, Amal, I saw Gregory Rousseau, except actually developed. And I saw him with actual pass rushing skills. He knew how to use his hands. He knew how to use his leverage. He knew to get down and make sure he didn't get up too high so he could maintain his power. He also had some quickness that I just didn't see Rousseau have on film whatsoever. I just not sure. I saw Rousseau have it on film whenever he played defensive tackle and lined up as a 3 tech, but not as a 5 tech edge rusher. I saw Payton Turner have all of that. So I'm just gonna say he's just a better Rousseau in my opinion. You have him at 9. I have him at 4. So I'm definitely higher on him than you are. But I really like Payton Turner. He just has all the power, quickness, combinations that you'd like to see from Gregory Rousseau, just that he does it better. Yeah, and my only knock on him would just be, again, I don't know, like he has some injuries in his background as well, and I think he can add some more pass rush moves to his repertoire. But that being said, like I said, he's already pretty decent in that regard. And all these guys are just, we got to remind ourselves, these guys are like 21-year-olds, 22-year-olds. They definitely haven't hit their athletic ceilings, let alone they haven't had great coaching. I mean, he went to Houston. I'm sure if he went to like New England or something like that, he'd be a far better pass rusher come like year 2 or year 3 in the NFL. but I think he gives you a really high floor, and on top of that, he gives you a high enough ceiling based on the tools that he saw on film. Yeah, I like Payton Turner.
Yeah, so for me, my weaknesses with Peyton Turner is his his consistency was my main issue with him. He couldn't he got quite high in stance when I saw him play, so his power was sometimes lacking. I saw that many times. So he can he does have great acceleration when I see when he attacks offensive linemen, but the problem is he loses momentum when he's lined up too high. So I saw that as a weakness for him. And I guess the other weakness that I really had with him was I guess yeah, I mean his he can be overmatched sometimes in power. Uh I also think he's quite raw, Reeb. I think, like you said, he went to Houston, which doesn't have that much competition. So I think he needs to be under the right system in order for him to truly turn out to be the player that you make him out to be. I think he's underrated, like you said. I think he has all the physical attributes. He's 6'5", 270. He's got good height and great weight for an edge. But I think yeah, I think if he's more consistent, I think that's my only thing that's holding back for Payton Turner to be higher. And I think also the fact that his competition level wasn't that high when he was at Houston. So yeah.
Yeah, I'd agree with that. I would say his competition wasn't all there, and he did have some inconsistencies. But just comparing him to Gregory Rousseau, his pad level was just way more consistent, his power more consistent, speed more consistent, and get off. I just think he was, like I said, I just think he's a better Gregory Rousseau. At number 7, the guy I just put into my top 10 purely because you know what, I was like, to the hell with it, whatever. Jayson Oweh, the pass rusher out of Penn State. I believe he stands at 6'5" Amal, like 245, 250, maybe 260. I forget. But Jayson Oweh, rather, edge out of Penn State. I have him number 10. I would have him lower, but at some point I've got to realize I've got to suck it up. The fact that this guy might just be the best athlete of any pass rusher ever coming out of college. I mean, he actually ran a 4.3. It was rumored that he'd run a 4.3. This man actually went out and did it. He has all the skills. People are copying him to Daniil Hunter. And I'm just going to be flat out honest. I think he's going to bust. I think Jayson Oweh is going to bust just because I think he's just going to end up being another overhyped guy who goes in the first round, maybe high second, where everyone's like, he has all the physical athleticism to do it. But when it comes to what he has in his tool belt, Amal, as a pass rusher, he has nothing. He has absolutely nothing. His get off, you don't really see it on film from what I saw. I watched a few games of his. Sometimes he would just get off the ball slow. Like he'd start like half a second after everyone else. I didn't see his get off there. I saw some power. I can see his pressures were kind of there as well, but just finishing, he actually got 0 sacks in the season, which is like, that's ridiculous from someone who's presumed to go in the first round. I just don't see him as a polished prospect whatsoever. And again, you're not drafting him as a polished pass rusher. You're drafting him because, again, he might be arguably the best athlete ever, like who's ever come out of college from the edge position. And that's what you're hoping you can coach him up. He's the definition of sort of trying to mold someone into what you want him to be because he has all the tools, but rather he has all the athleticism. I don't think he has any tools though when it comes to actually being a football player. And I actually said to him, well, like if you run so fast, why not just put him at linebacker? Because I just think if he's already running that fast, he's that big. You might as well just play him at linebacker. I think he'd play better there.
Okay, so for me, I had Jayson Oweh at my number 4 edge, EDGE-Areeb had him at 10. So that's why Oweh fell down this list. For EDGE-Areeb, it's increasing up this list. For me, it's falling down. So for me, Jayson Oweh, like you said, his pro day is probably the best pro day I've ever seen off of an edge. Period. I can say that off the rip. Incredible pro day. How much can you take a pro day with? A grain of salt. I agree with that. So I mean, it's incredible stats. So EDGE-Areeb does have a point there, but my thing is Areeb, it's top tier, it's elite speed that he has on the edge. He has great length, and I think his overall build is just there. I think he has above average power, elite speed. He has his physicality is pretty ideal. Off the run, he's very reliable. And his awareness is there. I mean, his awareness is probably among one of the best in this class. I like that a lot from him. His quickness to shut off blocks was easy. I thought he showed a lot of ability to engage and generate a push with a bull rush. I saw that as well. I guess and I also liked how he used his reach as well. He had a bunch of deflections that I saw during games. But I guess the only weakness, like you said, is he does lack polish as a pass rusher.
That's a
Um,
big weakness too. You can't just say only weakness. As
that's I mean,
as an impact when he
but here's the
as an
thing.
impact player,
Here's the thing though, Reeb. You can say that he lacks polish, but he also has all the athleticism to, of course, main of course gain polish. He can also he can turn into one of the top edges
yeah.
in this league.
And that's
And
why I have him in my top 10 purely because of that. But as an impact player
but
in college football,
you have to look at him as an overall prospect as a defensive edge, and you're looking at him as only as his pure skills that he has. And I think
he has none.
if you're gonna look at that, then he shouldn't even be listed in the top 10. But you have to go at it overall, and just based off that, I think
Yeah, and that's why he's in my top 10 period because overall, I don't
that's
think he's
why
a
he
good player.
no,
I just
but
think
I
he's a good athlete.
but I'm saying
So,
he's not a good athlete is an understatement though. That's my point here. I think
okay, fine. He's an
his
elite athlete.
and I think he has shown enough promise for him to with that great athleticism to be warranted as a top 5 edge. We're always going to agree to disagree on this one.
He's the definition of a
He's
boom or bust player. Like
he,
if he was a first round player, I wouldn't touch him if I was a GM because
he's
I'd just be so afraid. I'd take him in like the late second, early third, maybe mid third. That's where I'd be comfortable taking Jayson Oweh because he is a project player. He's probably the biggest definition of a project player in NFL history at this point. But he is a project player at the end of the day, and I just want more reliability in my players.
I mean, at the end of the day, it can. I don't know if I'd consider it a boom or bust pick. I still think he's going to be a very good player. I think if you know what you're going to get from him.
You don't though, Amal.
In my opinion, I
I don't
think you
know.
do.
Fair
And I
enough.
think he did generate 0 sacks, so that is obviously a weakness. But he just still generated great pressure on the quarterback. I definitely saw that in film. But I think the weakness, like I said, is his polishness. I guess is his weakness, and I guess he plays a bit high. Again, I think that was another weakness that I saw with him. But I think
Understating it, dude.
I think overall he brings yeah, his potential's through the roof for me. And
Yeah,
that's
that's
why
something we can finally agree on Jayson Oweh. His
I
potential is out of this world.
yeah,
It's just he needs to go to a place like Minnesota should draft him because I think Minnesota already like Mike Zimmer already knew how to develop Daniel Hunter, another raw prospect. He could do that again. And you know what? If he goes to Minnesota, then I agree with you. He's going to be a stud. But if he goes to like anywhere else, I just don't know if I have enough faith in him to work out. And he's someone I think is going to boom year 2 or year 3. I don't think he's going to boom immediately because
we'll
he's
see.
very, very raw.
We'll
But
see.
yeah, number 8 of them all, Carlos Basham, aka Boogie Basham, the edge out of Wake Forest, 6'5", 285. He is big. I just said 285 them all, but he actually plays like a smaller player. He has a lot more finesse and agility and sort of lateral athleticism to his game, similar to Kwity Pae. I forgot to mention that for Kwity Pae, but Kwity Pae's lateral agility is out of this world, and I think Carlos Basham is very close behind that. Um, his size gives him the ability to where he's going to be a run game monster. It's going to be hard to move him out of the way. He's another guy with a good inside swim move, similar to a Joe Tryon. Yeah, I think he's a guy who is in the I wouldn't say a speed rusher. He's more of a finesse rusher in the body of a big pass rusher. So yeah, his finishing also wasn't there, similar to Joe Tryon. But I just like what you're getting from his tools, Amal, and you've seen him produce at a high enough level where you're like, you know what, I like this. And he also gives you versatility because I think he's someone who he can play a 3-tech, he can play 5-tech, and he can be pretty good at all those positions. And just his explosiveness as well is there. You have him at number 8. I have him at number 7, and he is our consensus number 8. So yeah, I like Boogie Basham.
I mean, I think you hit the nail on the head. I think the thing I wanted to add, I guess, on the strength, his capability of forcing turnovers, Areeb, is insane. Like, I don't know if you saw the way like he would force fumbles, but oh my gosh, he's had 7 forced fumbles over the last 2 seasons. I think that's incredible. Considering in college, it's kind of hard to be doing that stuff. And he forced his game against I believe Trevor Lawrence. He showed that well. So yeah, I think the weaknesses that I think at the snap of the ball, he doesn't get off the line super quickly. I think that's my only other big weakness. I think shedding off blocks, I think it'd be another weakness that I can add to his game. But yeah, overall, I'm a fan. We actually drafted his brother, Carlos Basham, who I believe is now on the Jets. So, and he's turning out to be a pretty solid player. I believe we drafted him, I believe, in the 4th round. So, and I think I can definitely say he's a better player. So, looking forward to see how he develops.
And all these guys, including Jayson Oweh, are
I said his
2
brother,
guys.
Terrell Basham. That's who we drafted.
Yeah, Carlos Basham's someone else, my guy.
Yeah,
but
Carlos Basham's this guy. Yeah.
And all these guys we're talking about today, I'm going to talk about a sleeper later on. He might be like a round 3 type of guy, but I think all of them are like definitely 1st round to 2nd round guys. Now number 9, the guy whose name I didn't want to mention. You can say his name because I don't want to say his name anymore. But
what's his name, Areeb? I don't know his name. Can you tell? What's his name?
I'll call him the worst number 15 for Miami because since Jaylen Phillips also wore number 15, they didn't play the same season. But Mr. Gregory Rousseau, you made me say his name. I have him at number 12. You have him at number 5. Just talk about what you want to say about him, and then we can stop talking.
This dude's a monster, Areeb.
Disagree.
He's an absolute monster. An absolute monster. I'm not shocked that he was actually ranked the number 1 defensive edge player entering into the end at the end of the season. 6'6", 260. He can play both the 3-4 and the 4-3. Versatility is there. I know the same criticism you're gonna give to Oweh, you're gonna give to this guy, is lack of development. I guess that's the only thing that's there. But he managed to get 15.5 sacks in 13 games, Areeb. So
he lucked into sacks, just flat out. He lucked into sacks. Quincy Roche, who I have at number 14, he was the other Miami pass rusher. He played with both Phillips and.
He's got a high motor, Areeb. Come on,
Quincy Roche was better as an impact player than Gregory Rousseau, and I have Gregory Rousseau listed higher than him.
Here's the thing. I think maybe if you put Rousseau at DT, maybe that's why. I guess that's the big difference here. If you put him at DT, he could be maybe a bit more effective. But I think he's got ideal length and the bulkiness to be a true defensive end in the NFL. Weaknesses, yeah, he's slow. He's just kind of a slow mover out of the gate. I think 3-cone drill was awful. I think I can agree with that as well. I think you're
going to drop him down at your rankings now. Amal, his 3-cone was terrible.
His 3-cone was terrible, but I think that was the only reason I dropped him down to begin with. But I'm being serious. In all seriousness, I think he has his potential is also through the roof. His flexibility to bend the edge and close onto the pocket is there for sure. And yeah, I just like his high motor. So
okay, I will agree with that. That's one thing I will definitely agree with you. High motor guy. I know I talked about Joe Tryon and Ronnie Perkins and Joseph Ossai. They have high motor. So does Rousseau.
15.5 sacks.
He lucked into it, bro. He lucked into it. No, you can't. Amal, you know who else? No. You know who else had a ton of sacks in college? Marcus Smith. former Philadelphia Eagles
No,
first
but
round
that's
pick.
different.
He
No,
had
that's
like
different.
15 or
That's
16
different. No,
sacks.
that's
How is
different.
it different? How is
No,
it different?
that is different because
How is it different?
Marcus Smith went to fucking Louisville, bro. Chill out.
And Miami wasn't he? Gregory
Miami,
Rousseau literally
are you trying to
sucked.
compare? Are you trying to
Okay,
compare?
no, I'm not going to compare. I'm
Don't
not
you
going to.
dare!
Yeah,
Don't you
but
dare compare
Gregory
Miami
Rousseau, bro,
football to
Gregory
Louisville football.
Rousseau,
No,
dude,
no.
he has he has the length, he has the hustle, and I would say he has some decent.
There's a difference in playing in the ACC and playing in the AAC. That's all I'm gonna say. That's all I'm gonna say.
Okay, fair
All right?
enough. I agree
No,
with
no, no,
you.
no. I
But
think that if you're gonna really compare him to Marcus Smith,
but no, but the idea is
no, but
in college you can luck into
no, but
production.
he did that in arguably the
I
most
sent you the
competitive
tweet, bro. I
conference.
sent you a tweet. Let me see if I can find it. I have it somewhere saved.
Dude, it doesn't matter, Areeb. I mean,
okay, according to PFF's top edge rushers, Gregory
I
Rousseau.
thought you didn't like PFF,
50,
by the way.
I mean, they're pretty accurate in some regards, in some stats.
All right, here's
So
the thing. Even if you put 53% of all
53% of his pressures are unblocked or cleanup pressures.
Keep going down the list. Who's next?
Yeah, I see Jayson Oweh, but Jayson Oweh just didn't have a lot of pressures to
begin
with.
Okay, forget that. All right, even Azeez Ojulari, a guy that we have pretty high, he's at 41%. So it's not like there's a big gap between the two. And on top of that, I think it's unfair to say that all of all of Gregory Rousseau's sacks are out of pure luck. And
like, not all of them. A lot of them come from him being a 3-tech, and he played decent. And if he bulked up and played defensive tackle, I think he'd be a phenomenal defensive tackle. I just don't think he has any of the explosiveness currently, or the consistency when it comes to explosiveness, power, pad level, leverage. He just doesn't have any. Okay. He has the physical traits like a Jayson Oweh.
At him on tape, Areeb, I think you're seeing him as a skinny little guy that got lucky to get sacks. I think that's the only.
Oh no, I disagree.
I think that's got to be the way you're seeing it. I think he gained 25. He gained 25 pounds off his pro day.
So he knows he has to play defensive tackle to be a good player.
And he could, but the point is he can do everything. He can do either or. That's my point. And that his versatility is why he's quite high for me, honestly, too. And I think he's going to be a playmaker on the defensive edge. And I think he could
also has no pass rushing plan. And I think he has on
the defensive tackle. So he can do either or.
He has an extremely low floor. And I think from my early picks, I want to have someone who I know can be a good player. I don't know if Gregory Rousseau can be a good player. I just think he's very much too raw. He has some tools, but he's just too inconsistent with his get off. He got bullied by like some tight ends.
Is it a gamble? I'll agree. Is it a gamble? Yes.
Yeah.
I'm not gonna.
He got blocked by tight ends. Like tight ends shouldn't be able to block you when you're 6'6", 200, whatever.
I'm not gonna say he's not a gamble, but I mean I don't know, Areeb.
I don't know.
I'm just higher than him. I mean, I'm clearly not the only one that's high on him. I mean,
yeah, obviously you're not the only one.
I think you're the only one that's super low on him. I can definitely say that. But
I've actually seen people have him at like outside their top 10. And so I have him outside my top 10 as well. But
reputable people or just like people out in general?
I've seen him range anywhere from 8 to like 12 from some pretty well-known draft people that I follow.
And there's also people that have them
at number 20. 1. So
yeah, there's people that have him as a top 20 player in the draft. But I'm not even saying I have him there. I'm not even saying I'm having him there. Like I said, he's my edge 5.
We just value different things. I think that's what it comes to. You want to draft more for ceiling, and I'm all for drafting for ceiling when it comes to a guy like Penei Sewell, who has extremely athletic traits. You saw him put it together kind of on film.
It's not even just ceiling though, Areeb. I think you have to look at them as like athleticism and what they did in the college level and whether they can.
And he didn't do enough in college for me where I saw him being consistent enough as impact playmaker.
I think that's where we'll agree.
I just think again he has tools, he just didn't use them whatsoever.
We can move on. We'll agree to disagree. We'll agree to disagree. I think you have to look at the college players also effort. I think to transition into the NFL, and I think that's where we'll disagree. So we can move on.
Yeah, Joseph Ossai, defense. He was a more 3-4 outside linebacker, but he's still an edge from Texas, the Longhorns.
We both had him at 10, I believe.
Yeah, we both had him at 10. You had him at 7. I had him at 8 actually.
8, okay.
So a little bit higher.
Yeah.
What I like about him, I think he's an athlete who has good enough hustle. I just think he was more impactful as a player than Gregory Rousseau. So honestly, if you want to switch out Ossai and Rousseau, maybe I could understand it. But Ossai to me, I think he just definitely had much more of an impact from that edge rushing position than Gregory Rousseau had. So that's why I'm willing to gamble on someone like Joseph Ossai for
No,
being
but my thing is with the Osai is he can't play the 4-3 scheme. I think
yeah, I agree with that.
his
He
versatility
is a
isn't
3-4 player
he
once
can't
for
he's there for
sure.
3-4, but he cannot play 4-3. So and I think his pass rushing is not his he's not an effective pass rusher to me, Areeb. That's just my
Mhm.
opinion. Uh yeah, I mean, a lot of when he does pass rush, you talked about Jayson Oweh with no sacks. This dude does not get any sacks off the off the pass rushing. Um, so that I think that's probably an issue that I have with him. Strength is an issue that I
Mhm.
have. Shutting off blocks is an
I
issue.
like his arm length though.
But
I
I
think he
think
knows how
his
to long
motor,
arm.
I talked about motor with Rousseau.
Mhm.
His motor is just as good, man. I love his motor.
I agree.
So I think that's definitely going up for him. And I think his quickness is through the roof. Um and that you can't match his speed of direct and change of direction. And that's why he's definitely going to be a day one, day two pick.
Yeah, I agree with everything you said there. I'm just gonna hit on one sleeper, mostly because I have him in my top 10. You don't. Patrick Jones, the second, the edge rusher out of Pittsburgh. He is again very raw mall, but what I liked about him, his first step get off was ridiculous. I think I said he looks like a freight train coming off the edge because he does. And when he does come off the edge, either he's gonna hit you and he's gonna transition to power and it's gonna be great, or he's gonna like fall over and his balance is terrible. But I think he has an elite get off, so I think he was definitely worth putting in my top 10. But yeah, we can move on to our interior defensive lineman if you are ready for that. Starting off with my number one guy, and you have him number one too. I think it's more of a 1A, 1B situation between these top two guys. Levi Onwuzurike, the defensive tackle out of Washington, and then we both have him at one, and then we have Barmore, Christian Barmore, the defensive tackle out of Alabama at two. What I liked about uh, Levi Onwuzurike, first of all, his first step is really good. His power is really good. I think he gives you really nice athletic traits to translate to a higher level of play. Um, yeah, I really liked him. I just liked all his athleticism, his first step get off, his power. He knew how to use his hands because he's got long arms. He knew how to use them effectively to pass rush. Um, yeah, I think I liked all of that. I think what I didn't like, I think his pad level was inconsistent, and so that sort of held him back in his pass rushing sort of skills, his bull rush, and all that. And also, I think he's someone who needs to develop more of a pass rushing plan as well. But I also got to say, like, did he not have a plan because he was getting double teamed every single snap? Because, like I said, with Joe Tryon, Levi Onwuzurike, he was one of three guys on a line. Usually you want to have four or five. They only had three. He was double teamed often. And they, on top of that, they played him at nose tackle as a 6'3", 295-pound guy. Usually you want your defensive tackles, like one techs, nose tackles to be, like 320. He's way lighter than that. And even at that lightweight, he was still mauling these guys in the Pac-12. So I liked Levi Onwuzurike out of Washington. And just talking about Christian Barmore out of Alabama, he was inconsistent. His high pad level was there, and his leverage was definitely questionable. But when he put it all together, he was the best defensive player on Alabama's championship level defense. First step was ridiculous. His power was ridiculous. He had all the skills, I think, of all to be a really phenomenal player. It's just that he was inconsistent, and he only put it together like a couple games, I think, in his senior year or 2020. But yeah, I liked his hand usage as well. I like both these guys, Barmore and Levi. I just think Levi, I think, might have a higher ceiling and was a bit more consistent, seeing that he was getting double teamed every single time. And Barmore, he was not getting double teamed. And Barmore really only played like 20 snaps a game because, Bama, they have a great defensive line. I think Levi gives you more bang for your buck.
Yeah, so for me, Levi and Wuzurike was so we both had the same, obviously, same, obviously 1 and 2. And you also brought up that 1A and 1B. I think it is quite close. I do also find it hilarious that there are rumors the Eagles are interested at picking Christian Barmore at 12.
You didn't have to
Uh,
hurt me like that today, Amal.
so that is quite funny. But Christian Barmore is nice. I mean, I'm not gonna say he's not nice. But I already said before, this isn't necessarily the best defensive interior defensive lineman class. I'll start with Levi Onwuzurike. I mean, Levi, I think the only weakness that I have with him, he's a bit undersized. And I think yeah, that's honestly it. He maintains good gap integrity. Uh but sometimes he loses track of the ball, I guess. I guess that could be another weakness, but I think overall he has great quickness. Gets out of the stance quickly. And then he has great agility, and then his hands are good, leverage is there. So overall, that's why Levi's our number one guy. And I think the only, yeah, like I said, if he's obviously bigger and tall, if he was obviously like a taller dude, I guess that could help. Um, but I think he can still hold up against these offensive linemen in the NFL level. And then Christian Barmore, out of Alabama. He's got great size, and for many people, this is their consensus number one guy. So
It's a 1A, 1B for me. Like, you can go
So
either way. I don't
exactly,
care.
yeah. So I think my weaknesses with him is that he doesn't have like any like explosiveness or burst. That dude is just a big dude, 3'10", 6'5". And he can with that size though, he could play the 3-4 or the 4-3. He can play the 3-4 defensive end or the 4-3 defensive tackle. So he's got different techniques that he can play along the line, which is a plus. And his pass rushing is refined, so I can definitely say that his hands are good. He has good length, and like I said, the weaknesses with him is he's not very explosive, not very fast. I guess you can say he's not flexible. But yeah, so I think those are the only things that are holding Barmore back. And yeah, we can move on.
Yeah, and number 3, our consensus number 3. You have him at 3. I have him at 4. Daviyon Nixon, the defensive pass rusher from, I believe, is it Iowa or it's Iowa? Yeah, Iowa. Daviyon Nixon, 6'3", 305 pounds. He's definitely more of your, I guess, closer to more of a standard nose tackle. Definitely a 3-tech, 1-tech type of guy. His get off was also really phenomenal. I like that. His first step athleticism was there. And I think you hit on it. You have him higher than I do. He is for sure a higher ceiling. He might be the highest ceiling player out of these guys. I just think he has to refine his tools. He has athleticism. He has the quickness. He has the get off. He also has some power. I just think he struggles when it comes to disengaging, and I think that's something that's extremely. I think that's. I don't want to say it's a red flag, but it's probably like an orange flag. You want to see your guys
Yeah,
disengage,
that's my major red flag.
and
My major red flag. Yeah.
he just couldn't do it at a high enough level for me. And again, all these guys, pad level is going to be a concern for all of them because they get up too high and they have no leverage when it comes to their power. And he's no different. I just think, again, that's something you can coach into him. But I don't know if you necessarily coach him disengaging. He just seemed to not disengage the way you wanted him to off of these
Yeah.
blocks.
Agreed. Yeah. He does a great job of disrupting gaps though.
Mhm.
So he does that, but I think he struggles to break free off of blocks. I think that's the big problem with him. He does disrupt gaps, like I said before, but and I think his thing with my thing with him is he's for his size of being 313, 6'3", he's extremely quick, gets out the line pretty quickly. His agility is there. His arms are huge, Areeb. It's huge. It's massive. So I mean, I think that's a great positive that's there for him. But yeah, like you said, I think that's probably the biggest weakness is there. His overall awareness. I think we could just say that his awareness, that category of awareness needs to be improved. And if he can improve on that, then he can be a pretty solid defensive tackle in this league.
Yeah. Going on to number 4, Marvin Wilson, the defensive tackle out of Florida State. I have him at 3. You have him at 7, I believe. Marvin Williams is a Vince
Marvin
Wilfork
Wilson,
type of player.
Wilson. You said
Yeah.
Williams.
Oh yeah, Marvin Wilson. Yeah, Marvin Wilson. My bad. I'm looking at Milton Williams' name as well. That's my bad. Marvin Wilson. Um, he is a big guy, 6'3", 320. He's definitely not the heaviest guy in this class because Deontay Brown is like borderline obese, but he's definitely probably one of the higher weighted defensive tackles in this year's class. Marvin Wilson, like I said, Vince Wilfork, he is your standard nose tackle, one tech. You can play some three tech. He's all about power and he does it really well. High effort type of guy. I really liked him. I think if you need someone to clog up lanes and be a pocket pusher, that's what he is. He pushes the pocket at a really high level, similar to like a Fletcher Cox. Like Fletcher Cox, he's not necessarily a nose tackle. He's definitely more of a three tech. But Fletcher Cox, he doesn't get a lot of sacks, but his impact on the game is always there. And he's been like a top 3, top 2 defensive tackle for like his entire career because he's just a pocket pusher and he's always getting double teamed and he's always making room for opportunities for his teammates. And I see Marvin Wilson sort of in that role as well. I think he's going to be a really bruising, space eating defensive tackle and I think he's going to be a really high level impact player in the NFL. And that's what I like about Marvin Wilson. He's just like your standard nose tackle who's going to be really good at his job.
Yeah, so for me, Marvin Wilson didn't make my top 5. And I think the major thing with him, the reason that he didn't make my top 5 was he doesn't have enough moves in his arsenal from what I saw. He was bull rushing a lot, but I think he needs to add more pass rushing moves from what I've seen in the inside the interior defensive lineman position. I think also he's not the quickest getting out of the snap.
Mhm.
His
Which is
burst
fair
was
because he's 320 pounds.
yeah. So I think that of course that's expected. But yeah, he could end up being a pretty big dude. He could also cut weight. I could also see him. I looked at his 2019 film, Areeb, and he looked lighter.
Yeah, he was way heavier in 2020. His
Yeah,
2019 film is better, and
his
it was
2019
because he
film
was
was
lighter.
he moved better. He was way more productive as well. 2020 also had the leg injury though too, so he came off the leg injury, I should say. So I guess that's why 2020 didn't look the best. But the strength with him is yeah, he has a big motor, man. He doesn't give up on plays. And I think yeah, he's just a powerful dude. You can obviously see that 6'4", like what 310, 320. You said that dude is he's a monster. So he pushes the pocket as a pass rusher, pretty solid, but with the bull rush. So yeah, uh, we can move on from that.
Yep. Number 5, Tommy Togiai, the defensive tackle from Ohio State University, standing at 6'1", 296. So he's a shorter guy, but he has the weight. And we talked about pocket pushers and all. He's probably the second or third. He's probably the second closest thing you can get to a Marvin Wilson in this class. Um, this guy, if you watch him, his Ohio State film, you'll be watching all these guys, and you don't really pay attention to Tommy Togiai, but you're always in the back of your mind. You're like, damn, who is this guy? He's always in the backfield. He's always on the other, like the opponent, the offensive side of the line of scrimmage. He's always pushing the pocket. Very strong, powerful type of guy, high effort as well, similar to a Marvin Wilson. My problem was I just think Marvin Wilson, for his role, did a way better job of being that one tech, nose tackle type of guy. Tommy Togiai, I have him at 8. I think he he's a lighter guy, and I think he just doesn't have enough disengagement for someone that's that light, if that makes sense. His hand usage was just not there when it came to disengaging. Once he gets caught, he is very much snared in the offensive lineman's grip. But yeah, I think I like him overall. I think he has pretty good burst for a bigger guy. I just think I think he's just not my cup of tea when it comes to a defensive tackle. That being said, I think he's going to go like round 3 and he's going to be a really like impactful player. So yeah, I'm fine with Tommy Togiai here. I like
Yeah,
him.
so my the reason that I had him high was his game against Penn State. I saw him play. He had 3 sacks against Penn State, which I guess really stood out to me. And that's the game I saw the most out of Tommy Togiai, and I actually noted his name down for that reason. Uh, yeah, he's a sturdy defender. I mean, he's got great lateral mobility. Um, but I think the weaknesses that I see with him, obviously, his ability in the passing game. His his pass rushing is not the best. Uh, so I guess that's a big concern actually. So I guess that's my only weakness that I have with him, and also the fact that he has only had 1 year as a true starter. So there's not a lot of film to really dissect on him. So we can move on though.
Yeah, so that was our number 5 guy, I believe. So there's 2 guys I want to talk about, and then I think you can also talk about Milton Williams because you have him at 4. I haven't watched him, so I'm not going to give my opinion on him. But my number 5 guy is actually Osa Odighizuwa, the defensive tackle from UCLA. I have him as like a round 2 to 3 prospect. 6'2", 282. He's a shorter guy with a great explosive burst, and he knows how to use his levers really well. So I think he's going to be a really impactful player. Yeah, he's a bit smaller, so you can get maybe occasionally pushed around more than you'd like. And I don't, by no means, I think he's going to be like a star defensive tackle. But I think as just as a pure, you know what you're getting someone who's a high effort pass rusher who's going to push the pocket and he's going to finish sacks because he's smaller and he's just has way more explosiveness to finish those sacks and plays. I really liked Osa Odighizuwa, and he is my number 5 guy. And then our consensus number 6 Amal is Alem McNeil out of, I think he's NC State. I want to say, you can correct me on that. 6'2", 320. Um, and he's again another nose tackle type of guy, and that's why I have him below Marvin Wilson and above Tommy Togiai. I think from those heavier guys, he is someone who you can't move. Like he's just sort of just there taking up 2 blocks, 3 blocks at all times. And he's definitely not a pass rusher at all. He's not going to get you any sacks, but I think as a space eating defensive tackle, if you just want someone who's not going to be able to move and he'll clog up these running lanes and he won't be a big impact in the passing game himself, but will open up opportunities for another guy. I think Alan McNeil is your guy. But yeah, if you want to talk about Milton Williams, and then we can move on from our sleepers and go on to our, I think, linebackers.
Yeah, so for Milton Williams, for me, this dude reminds me, Areeb, a lot of a Shaq Barrett. He went to a small school, of course, in Louisiana Tech. So of course I can obviously say that. But I think the dude's pursuit, Areeb, is just it's like unrelentless, man. He never gives up on the play. He's got a high motor, closes the gap on the run game incredibly well. And then he can play defensive end, or he can play the 4-3 or the 3-4. So he uses that positional flexibility, and then he eats up blockers really well. He could honestly be a DT1 if he went to a better school. So that's my take with Milton Williams. So
Fair
Louisiana
enough.
Tech is just the thing here. He doesn't have he's not explosive. I guess that's another problem with him. He's not really fast, but I mean that's not really surprising. This dude's 278, so but he could become faster, and I think that's the only weakness I saw.
Yeah, we can move on to our linebackers now. So consensus linebacker number 1, Micah Parsons. I have him at number 2. You have him at number 1. What I like about Micah Parsons is this guy is definitely the most athletic linebacker in this year's class by like a mile. He can run and he can cover space and he can do it really quick. Um, what I didn't like about him is I just think, see, this is Amal. This is where I want to talk about Gregory Rousseau, about like a high athletic guy with a high ceiling. The reason why I didn't knock Micah Parsons all that much for not being the best linebacker when it came to just knowing how to play the position was because I think Micah Parsons has legitimate. He has legitimate production. He had legitimate great games, which he produced on his own. And also, I just think Micah Parsons, he's just so freakishly athletic where I don't think you can necessarily miss on him as a player. Because I think no matter what, I think he's gonna be a hit. I just think his athleticism is just that high. Like, yeah, maybe he can't play middle linebacker, but then guess what? Put him at like weak side linebacker, and I think he can play like the outside linebacker role really well. If you want him to rush the passer, I think he can do that pretty decently as well. He gives you versatility. I like Micah Parsons. I just don't like him as much as our number 2 guy, but I'll let you talk about Micah Parsons first.
Yeah, so Micah Parsons for me, of course, I'm going to be biased because I'm a Penn State kid, but even entering into this season, he was the best defensive player entering into this draft. He sat out, and I think nothing has changed. I think he's still the best defensive player in this draft. He's explosive. His versatility is there. He's great at stopping the run, on passing, on the when it's in the pass rush. He's very effective. He's pretty good in coverage as well. He can play zone very well. He can cover tight ends pretty well. Great speed, great burst, I should say, and he has pretty good speed as well. Um, the weaknesses that I see with him, he's not.
I
He's
think
not
he
a
overruns gaps a lot. That's what I saw on film where he just like I think he had a general idea of where the play was
overrunning
going.
gaps is on play action plays. I saw that too.
Yeah,
Yeah,
I think
overrunning
he
gaps. Yeah.
and this is why I like him, right? I think he has a general idea of where the ball is going, so he's not like completely clueless at it. I just think he needs to work on, not because he's so damn fast. He overruns gaps and
Yeah,
overruns the play.
I think the other weakness that I have with him, he's fat. He has speed, but he needs to improve on quickness. I think that's definitely that can be
And I
said.
think getting off of blocks was also something that I'd like to see him do more. And again, this guy. He was a defensive end in high school. I think he's only really had one, maybe two level years at linebacker. I think if
Yeah.
he had played in 2020, I think you would have seen him putting more of it together, and he would have been probably the consensus number 1. But I think there's just a little bit more worries for me, not necessarily worries. I think Jeremiah Owusu-Koramoah, who I have a number 2, we have a number 3. He's our consensus number 2. I think he gives you way more versatility and has less question marks about him. So Jeremiah Owusu-Koramoah, for me, he's a heat-seeking missile that just needs to make sure he explodes on contact every single time. I think that's the way I would put it, because he knows where the ball is going at all times, and he is I think he's definitely faster than Micah Parsons. Way more explosive, not way more explosive, but he's the most explosive linebacker in this class, and you'd expect it because he's like 6'1". He's like, I think he has like 20 or 30 pounds lighter than Micah Parsons, and he's a bullet. Like I said, heat-seeking missile. He just needs to work on wrapping up a little bit more consistently. But every time you see him on big games, he's making big plays, fumbles, recoveries for touchdowns, picks. He can do everything. And he is also an Isaiah Simmons type of player, flashing back to last year's draft class where Isaiah Simmons played safety and he played edge rusher. I don't think Jeremiah Owusu-Koramoah can play edge rusher, but I think if you need him to play defensive back, he can play defensive back too. And I think he can do all that at a really high level. So I think his versatility is why I'd put him higher than Micah Parsons. But yeah, my only flaw with him is I think he just needs to be more consistent tackling. But otherwise, he is a heat-seeking missile that just needs to make sure he hits his target more effectively.
Yeah, so you hit on missing tackles. I think improving on tackling, I think that's my major weakness that I have for him. And I think the red flag, I think not a red flag, but he can't control it. The problem with him is I think he's going to be the smallest linebacker in the NFL. He's 6'1", 215, Areeb. That's kind of worrisome, I'm not going to lie. He needs to add weight to become effective. And he
I
needs
don't
to
know
do
if he
that.
does, though. He's a big enough
Because
hitter to where it doesn't matter, I think, personally.
no, because here's the thing. At the rate he's playing at Areeb, he could probably might up and actually end up being a better safety than even a linebacker, because he's not he needs to add he needs to become effective by adding more weight, because his like you said, tackling is an inconsistent. He allows a lot of broken tackles. I saw that a bunch in film. And I think his play recognition is good, but yeah, it's just the tackling is a major issue, and his size. He's 6'1". He's 6'1", 215. And I think that's you can't have that unless he gains more weight. Otherwise, he's great. He's great at pass coverage. So he can definitely become a very solid safety. If they want him to do that. So I guess that could also be a strength, that he can also line up at safety, kind of like a Jabril Peppers. But Yeah, awareness is like top notch, Areeb. I think his awareness is probably, even out of including any player in this class, his awareness might be the number one I've ever seen in this class. He reads gaps very well. Um, Great pursuit. Great. He has good recognition as well. So yeah, that and my only thing, yeah, he needs to put on weight, I think, and if he wants to play linebacker on the next level.
I can maybe see that as a concern. The one thing I would say is we didn't talk about him sort of not being able to get off blocks like we did with Micah Parsons, because I think he's just so much quicker than Micah Parsons, where the lineman's coming, but he's already gone. So I don't think I could understand the putting on the weight thing for him, making him more consistent of a tackler, but I don't think he needs it to play linebacker as a high level, or at least safety. I think he's really good at that regard and that at that skill. Our consensus number three linebacker, Jamin Davis out of Kentucky. I have him at 4. You have him at 3. What I liked about Jamin Davis is similar to Micah Parsons, though not as fast. I think he's definitely an athlete who has a pretty good idea on how to play linebacker. His coverage is pretty nice. He's like he's 6 foot like 5, like 245. Like he's a big guy playing linebacker, and he runs really well, knows how to use his athleticism to get in these rushing lanes. I liked Jamin Davis. I just didn't like him more than Zaven Collins, who was our consensus number 4. But yeah, Jamin Davis, he's long, good enough speed. But again, the same problems with Micah Parsons was just overrunning gaps and getting through traffic and getting off blocks. And I think that's just something he can work on and get better at the next level. But overall, I like Jamin Davis. I like what you get from him as a player. I think he's a discount Micah Parsons, but I think he probably has a better knowledge of the game than Micah Parsons, if that makes sense.
No, yeah, definitely. He definitely has a better knowledge of the game. He is still limited though, limited with experience. I think the I'm gonna obviously start with the weaknesses because I have him higher. He has he doesn't have a lot of coverage reps either. I don't know necessarily if he's excellent per se in cover. He has made a couple great games, several key plays that he did make. But I think he's got to improve on zone coverage. I believe. I think that's a thing that I have. And you talked about Michael Parsons shedding blocks as an issue. I think Jamin Davis has that issue too. Um, so I think that could definitely become better. But my thing with Jamin Davis, Areeb, is that he's got tremendous size, Areeb. 6'4", 234. He's got long arms. I think he has very good body control and quickness. His speed is there. He has great athleticism. He unlike JOK is a great tackler and he can finish plays off. So and he can track balls very well. So his awareness, even though it's not at the level of JOK, it's still there. Uh, but yeah, I guess fundamentally he needs to work on. He needs to have gain more experience, I guess, at that linebacker position. But he doesn't miss tackles, Areeb. That's for damn sure.
I would agree with that 100%. Now moving on to Zaven Collins, our number 4 linebacker. This guy somehow measured in at 270 at like I think the combine or whatever it was, the combine weigh-ins, which happened over the weekend. I think it was yesterday or 2 days ago. Linebacker out of Tulsa, 6'5", 270 pounds, and he doesn't even play like a small guy, which is ridiculous because he runs extremely fast. Like we talk about LeBron being a freak athlete, 6'8", 280, runs extremely fast. I put Zaven Collins almost in that same boat of like the 0.0001% athletes. Zaven Collins, man, he should not be running as fast as he does. And I also think he's not the best pass coverage linebacker because I think Jeremiah Wusu-Karamoma is better. And I think Jabril Cox out of LSU, who we might end up talking about, I think he's our consensus number 6. He's a better pass coverage player. But I think comparing him to Micah Parsons and Jamin Davis, Zaven Collins is miles better. He knows how to read the quarterback's eyes. He knows how to pick off the ball, get in these passing lanes. And he plays smaller than someone who's 270 pounds on film. And I think if he learns how to use his body, he can learn how to get off these blocks a little bit better. I really like him. I think his speed and range for someone of that size is ridiculous. That being said, I don't necessarily know if he's a middle linebacker. He might end up being more of like a will linebacker or Sam playing these outside linebacker spots. But I loved Zaven Collins out of Tulsa, and he's probably going to end up falling into the second round. And if he does, the Eagles better snag him up. I love him.
Let's see if Howie Roseman's smart enough to do that. Honestly, I think you've covered everything that I wanted to say about Zaven Collins. Speed and change of direction, I guess, is kind of a weakness that I saw with him. And I think man coverage, he needs more experience, I should say, in the man coverage. Because I didn't see a lot of film on that. But yeah, he reads plays pretty well. He's great at the run defense. But yeah, I think what you said was pretty good. We can move on.
Yeah, and moving on to Nick Bolton. Nick Bolton, he might just be the best linebacker in this draft when it comes to knowing how to play in linebacker, if that makes sense. He's just very smart, and his instincts are just always right. My only flaw with him was that Nick Bolton out of Mizzou, by the way, he's just a bit too slow. So yeah, I think he's definitely someone who would play in more of like a north-south system versus like a sideline to sideline system. He has enough speed to make those plays downhill. I just don't know if he has the range to be like a sideline to sideline linebacker. But Nick Bolton, other than his speed, I have no real flaws with him. I think he knows how to get off blocks and he knows how to play linebacker at a really high level.
Undersized is probably my only weakness with
Yeah,
Nick
fair
Bolton.
enough.
I think that's another one that I had to add with the speed. But yeah, otherwise, I think he's a very good player as well. Great tackling ability as well that I saw from Nick Bolton. Yeah, we can move on.
Yeah, I'm just finishing off with some sleepers here. Jabril Cox, who I just mentioned, because why not just talk about him? Because I already said his name. Jabril Cox, he is a pass coverage linebacker, and he has the athleticism to be a pretty high level player. I feel. I think he's 6'2", 240 pounds, so he's got some good enough size to I just think he needs to work on being a better run coverage linebacker. But I think as a pure pass coverage linebacker, he is one of the best in this year's class. And then finishing off with my deep sleeper, I guess you could say. He's my number 7th ranked guy, Cameron McGrone out of Michigan. I have him as a 3rd round player. He has all the tools to be a really great run stopping linebacker. I think he has the mobility to be good at pass catching, a pass coverage rather, but he just needs to work on making that more consistent. But Cameron McGrone, his only knock for me is injury, really. If he wasn't, I think he tore his ACL. If he hadn't torn his ACL, I think he would have been a way higher on my board because I think he's up there with Nick Bolton. It's just that he knows the game. He's just a faster Nick Bolton. So I really liked him out of Michigan. But yeah, that is it for linebackers. Unless you've got someone else you want to talk about.
No, I think you're good. Yeah, I think you're good. We can move on. Yeah.
Okay, starting off with corners then. Patrick Surtain, our consensus 1. You have him 1. I have him at 2. What I like about Patrick Surtain is he has that veteran aura around him. He played in the SEC. He's played a ton of really good guys. And like I think you can definitely tell is that his dad has sort of coached him up. Former Patrick Surtain, I think he played for Miami, I want to say. Patrick Surtain, the second though, 6'2", has ideal length and size. My only knock on him was that when he wasn't using his hands at the line, I think he wasn't the best coverage corner, but I still think he's definitely worth being a 1st round pick. So I don't think it's that big of a hole. I just like JC Horn out of South Carolina more. But yeah, Patrick Surtain, I think if you need someone to be an impact player, you know what you're getting Patrick Surtain. I think his long speed was also kind of a question, but when he presses at the line, Amal, when he plays that pure man-on-man coverage corner, he can do all that. And he has all the ideal length to make up for some of the speed that he is missing for. I like him.
Yeah, so Patrick Surtain, I expect him to be a top 10 pick in this draft, probably at 10.
Yep, Dallas.
Dallas, don't be stupid here. He's tall, long, rangy. Reeb, this reminds me a lot of this is why I even think it's a perfect fit for Dallas. Do you remember Byron Jones? A guy that has been pretty irrelevant with the
Yeah.
Dolphins, but Byron Jones, he reminds me a lot of Byron Jones, man. He's tall, long, rangy. He's got a he can play. He has great technique in the press coverage. Very quick to anticipate in zone coverage as well. And I think the biggest takeaway that I have with him is his instinctual skills and his ball skills. So yeah, I mean, like you said, I think he needs to improve, I think, in short area quickness. I think that like you said before, I think that's kind of a weakness that I saw in this game. But yeah, I mean, I think it's gonna be a challenge to it's gonna be a challenge for receivers to get through Patrick Surtain in the NFL level. For me, he would have been my cornerback 2, but or my cornerback 1 had a setback, an injury, so that's why he has now risen from number 2 to number 1 for me.
Fair enough. Corner number 2, J.C. Horn out of South Carolina. I just think he's the best coverage corner in this year's class. And maybe I'm just using like an anecdote, but I just have an image of Kyle Pitts mossing Patrick Surtain. And when JC Horn covered Kyle Pitts, that just didn't happen. So maybe it's just like that mental image in my head.
Of course, yeah.
JC Horn, dude,
that being said, Kyle Pitts is probably
he's a monster. Yeah.
So, and then when you obviously look at Patrick Surtain also, like, I mean, it is definitely close. JC Horn, I think our top 3 guys, I think they're all relatively close to each other. So
yeah, JC Horn, my only knock on him, I think he's a great man coverage corner, great press corner, great in the zone. He has he's probably had the best length in this class to make these pass breakups. Again, he's just a bit too physical for me. And sometimes that might get called on a flag, but I think you can teach him to be like, you know what, JC Horn, maybe you just don't grab as often. Like, I think it's that simple and you can fix him and he can be like a phenomenal player. I really liked him.
His ball skills, I guess, are weakness. He only had 2 picks throughout his entire career.
Yeah, but I think he makes up for it in PBUs.
But exactly. That's my thing, right? That's the only weakness.
He's a Richard Sherman type of corner for me.
I think aggressiveness is there, of course. I love aggressive corners. But yeah, I don't see honestly that many weaknesses in this game. Yeah, he's a lock. He has potential to also be the best corner in the NFL. He's that good. I believe you even have him as a top 10 player in this class, Areeb. And I wouldn't doubt that. Even though I have him at corner 3, I think he's a very solid cornerback.
Yeah, agree with you on that. And then number 3, our consensus. You have him at number 2. I have him at number 4. Caleb Farley out of Virginia Tech. This guy, I think he comps more to Byron Jones than Patrick Surtain does, just because I think he has the mobility.
That's true too. It's close. It's close with him.
Yeah, he has the athleticism for me. I loved Caleb Farley. He has the ideal length you want in a corner. He has the speed, the flexibility in his hips, the fluidness. He has all of that. What I didn't like is I just think he was a bit too over aggressive and he got beat by double moves more than I'd like. So as a pure coverage corner, that's why I have him at 4 versus spoiler, Kelvin Joseph is our consensus number 4. I think Kelvin Joseph is just as a pure, you know what you're getting. And I think Kelvin Joseph is just a more consistent pass coverage player versus Caleb Farley. He also has an injury, like a back injury, which may or may not be serious. Who knows? But I think his over aggressiveness was something that sort of knocked him down a spot for me.
Yeah, so my only thing holding him back was the back surgery thing. Otherwise, he has elite closing speed downfield.
Oh yeah, for sure. His recovery speed is ridiculous.
Recovery speed is just absolutely nuts. Also, this dude was a clamp, bro. I think his on the average passer rating of quarterbacks that face Caleb Farley, 27. It's insane how much of a clamp this dude is. But yeah, the only thing that's concerning to me is the back surgery. Otherwise, Caleb Farley would be my cornerback 1. We can move on.
Yep, Kelvin Joseph. I think he's a phenomenal coverage corner. He plays more. think he plays a lot of press necessarily, but you want him to play man, you want him to play zone, he'll do it and he'll do it phenomenally. He was probably the best player in all of college last season to cover Devontae Smith.
Yeah,
Got
I
a
was gonna
pick on
mention the
him.
game against Alabama. Yeah,
Yeah,
he
I mean,
covered Devontae Smith
he
very
got a
well.
pick on him.
Yeah,
Um, yeah, I love it. I think my only flaw with him was his tackling, but uh, I mean, what do you expect? He's 190 pounds. He's not going to be
exactly.
the best
Yeah,
tackle. You're
agreed.
drafting him to cover players, and I think if you want to erase the wide receiver one or the weapon number one on the opponent's team, he can do that at a really high level, which is why I have him at 3. Yeah, I have him at 3.
Yeah, that's fair. I mean, I don't have really too much to add on that. Calvin Joseph, he had his game against Alabama is what really stood out to me, and that's why I'm pretty high on him. So yeah, we can move on.
Okay, Greg Newsome is our consensus number 5 out of, I think, what is he, Northwestern? Yeah, 6'1", 190. Uh, you know, comparing him to Calvin Joseph, his tackling is definitely way better.
Way
So
better.
I'm way better. Um, he has the fluidity, he has the hips. Again, just if you want someone to be a good coverage corner, I think you can do that at a high enough level. Like nothing much more you can say. I think he has all the tools and the length to be a
Weaknesses
good
against
coverage
the
player.
run. It's crazy against the runs. I guess that weakness is there, where he holds on the blocks for a bit too long. But I think his awareness is there. In my opinion, he could end up being end up being at the top corner in this class. His fluidity is what really stood out to me, Areeb, like you said.
Yeah, his hips.
Yeah. So
I just think he's a
yeah,
discount version of Kelvin Joseph as a pass coverage player. So
a
that's
pass
why I
coverage.
think,
Yeah, agreed.
yeah,
Yeah, that's fair.
that's why I put him right. I have him at 6. You have him at 4. So,
That's fair. Yeah.
number 6, Asante Samuel Jr. Out of Florida State. So maybe I'm just higher on Florida State players because I've already had 2. But dude, Asante Samuel for me, I'm just getting vibes of Jerry Alexander. People say he might not be able to play the outside because he's only 5'10".
That's
You
my
know what?
only weakness for
You know
Florida.
what, man? He plays the ball at a great level. His fluidity, his hips, his pass coverage is there, Maul. I think his pass coverage is just so good to where I think he's always in position. So yeah, maybe occasionally, you know what? He'll get mossed by like a Kyle Pitts because Kyle Pitts has like 6 inches of height on him. But you know what? Just don't line him up against Kyle Pitts. You have that option. I feel like line him up against, you know what? Just line him against Odell Beckham's, Jarvis Landry's, wide receiver ones who aren't that tall. Because if you think that's like a flaw for him, maybe it
He's
is a flaw for
5'10".
him.
He's
Yeah.
5'10". 5'10", 184 pounds.
Jair Alexander
His
is six
arms are
five
small.
11.
His arms are 30-inch arms. Yeah, but the thing is with him, my thing with him is yeah, his size is just that's my thing. 5'10", 5'11",
At the
even an
very
inch.
least, Amal, I think he's going to be an elite slot coverage corner. At
Okay,
the
that's fair.
best, you can get a Jair Alexander who's one of the best outside corners in the league.
Okay.
I'm just higher on him than other people, but it is what it is.
No, but yeah, I think the only thing that's there for me, yeah, the size. The size scares me. Jair Alexander. I mean, you can always bring up guys like Jair Alexander, but there's a reason why Jair Alexander is the only guy under 6 foot that's actually really good.
And
Right?
Denzel Ward too, to
And
be
Denzel
fair.
Ward. But yeah, Denzel Ward is a completely different animal when he was in college compared. I mean, yeah, come on. So,
Fair enough.
that's my thing. Yeah. So we can move on.
Okay, Elijah Molden, cornerback out of Washington,
Could also play
5'10",
safety.
190. Could also play safety. He's definitely some sort of nickel safety hybrid. He played a lot of safety, in my opinion, from what I saw him play. He
Yeah.
has the instincts. He has good enough instincts as a safety. So if you just want to lift him as a DB, put him as a DB, let him play like strong safety. You can do that at a good level. He's an excellent slot cornerback with that versatility to play safety. Good enough speed, great coverage. Yeah, and he has some tenacity. I think I like his tenacity, and I think as a tackler, he's pretty decent. But yeah, he 5'10". He is the slot corner that you want Asante Samuel to be. I think Elijah Molden. We have him back to back. I have him at 8. You have him at 8 as well. So I like Elijah Molden.
Yeah, I think you've covered everything that I wanted to say. He is quite physical. I've seen him. I think that's quite of a he tends to grab people a lot. I saw in film, so I saw that as a potential weakness. Also, he doesn't have the best speed either. I don't know if you could see that also in film. He got burned a
I think
lot
he
by
was
faster
fair.
receiver.
I think he was fine, but I could understand it a little bit.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. And I think yeah, his he's not his hips are I think he has pretty tight hips, so I guess that's also change of direction's not really the best in my opinion. But yeah, this strengths though, Areeb. He's a very versatile defender. He can, like I said, he can play the slot or a safety. Um, and I think he's probably best at like the nickel, because
Hmm.
of his height and length. Awareness, his awareness, I think, is probably the best out of. He's up there for the best awareness in this draft class as a corner. Uh, yeah, um, physicality is there, but sometimes yeah, holding problems are there for them. Uh, Tackler, you already talked about that. He's a good tackler, but yeah, Elijah Molden, very good corner. We can move on.
Yeah, and we've somehow had three quote unquote slot corners. I mean, I don't think Asante Samuel's a slot corner, but he's the closest that you'll get. We've had Asante Samuel at 6, Elijah Molden at 7, and then you have, or we both have Aaron Robinson at 8. You have him at 6 on your list. I have him at 11. I know what you're going to say about Aaron Robinson. You're going to say he's a great coverage corner and he has the
Exactly.
versatility to play
Yep.
outside and
Yep.
inside.
Yep.
He's
Yep.
6 foot 190,
Yep.
a great tackler.
Yep.
I just think he's athletically limited, and I think his speed and his top end speed and his burst, he
Agreed.
just I don't know if
That's
he
true. It's true.
necessarily has that. So that's why I have him at 11. I think he's a decent player. I'd take him in the early round 3. I'd be fine with him there. I just think he's athletically handicapped. So at that
That's fair.
point, I'd rather just go with the
His
better
athleticism
athlete.
isn't on par with some of these guys that are definitely that we've mentioned above him. So yeah, that's fair. We can move on. That's fair.
Yeah, at the range that I'd like to take him, I would prefer a Tyson Campbell actually, who was our consensus number 9. Great segue, I know. Tyson Campbell he's my consensus number 10. He's your 9. From Georgia, 6'2". He is extremely skinny and light, and he's going to get bullied around a lot. I think overall, though, as a corner, his only flaw for me was just getting his head around and making sure he doesn't get burnt on these plays. I remember one play especially where Seth Williams, the wide receiver out of Auburn, rather, he just completely mossed this guy because Tyson Campbell just didn't get his head around. I think if he's a raw player who has great athletic traits, he just needs to work on getting his head around more. And I think that's a huge flaw in his game, which is why I have him at 9. And I also think he's just a bit too raw for me, especially with his hands, and he is too light. But overall, I like Tyson Campbell, and that's why I have him at number 10.
Yeah, Tyson Campbell. He was a pretty good corner, man. I believe out of high school he was the second ranked cornerback in the nation. Yeah, he's been pretty good, man. I think throughout college. The weaknesses that I saw though, in his game, I thought he was like, I don't know how to say this, Uri, but like he was like he shouldn't be based on the. I think, damn, I don't know how to say this. He only has one interception, so I think that obviously doesn't compare well. But obviously, like guys like what's his face? We already have guys that are above him that don't necessarily have a lot of interceptions, like J.C. Horn. But I think there's a lack of production there when I saw Tyson Campbell play, and I think he he uses his speed well, but he lacks the ball skills to impact plays. So
Yeah.
we
Mhm.
talked about ball skills with J.C. Horn, but I think it's much worse. I think when it comes to Tyson Campbell. So, but I mean, obviously that's stuff you can improve upon. Uh, but I think awareness is also another thing I saw with him. Uh, I looked at his game against Alabama, and my God, of course he got torched. He got torched by
He got
Devontae Smith.
destroyed,
He
bro.
got he got he got his ass
He
handed to him.
got
He
bullied by
got
someone
whooped.
who's like 30 pounds lighter than him,
Yeah,
too.
I mean That's why, I mean, I'm not gonna say it's Devontae Smith, but he couldn't stick he could stick to Devontae second until the last second, and then that's all that mattered. It's all she wrote after that. I mean, most of these corners, to be fair, probably can, but it's just like that last second's at the end of the day what matters most. And yeah, Devontae Smith, he oh my gosh,
He
he
torched him.
became Devontae Smith's son. Yeah, it was bad. It was bad. It was really bad. To be fair, Devontae Smith torched almost every corner, other than of course Kelvin Joseph. So even him, he didn't. I don't know if he necessarily torched, but yeah, we can move on.
Yeah, our consensus number 10, Ifeatu Melifonwu out of Syracuse, 6'3", 212. For me, he's
Can
what
also play
what's
safety.
he can also play safety. He's what Kevin King should have been. The former no, he is the current Green Bay corner because he got re-signed. Got his most notable play is getting burnt by Scotty Miller and essentially choking the
Calling him a
playoff game.
bum. Yes, we
Yeah,
remember that pod. You had a big rant on Kevin King there. Oh my gosh.
but
Jeez.
Ifeatu Melifonwu, for me, he's just a better Kevin King. Like he's what Kevin King should be. He has the size, obviously 6'3", 212. Has the length for his arm size, his speed, has the hip fluidity that Kevin King could only dream of. Yeah, I love him as a player. What you're getting from him, what you want to get, is someone who's going to line up against these bigger players and just erase them. I think he can do that. And I think he can also, to some extent, line up against smaller players, though. Eventually, if you're facing, like, I don't know, like, what's a smaller player? Like a Tutu Atwell might just, like, be a bit too small for him, like, he would just, like, juke him because I think at some level, I think his height is going to be a not the best trait for him. I think his height's going to hold him back. But I think against most NFL wide receivers, I think he's going to be a good enough coverage corner where those smaller shifty guys aren't going to, hurt him as much as they could.
Yeah, so I think awareness was another weakness I saw in his game. And I think also like his change in direction was, I think, also an issue that I saw. Um and on top of that, of course, injury concerns are there with him. But other than that, Melifonwu, he's got great size, great 6'3", 205. Speed is there, his athleticism is pretty good. Uh but I think, and his tackling is very good too. I think he you can see that in film that he tackles players very good at. I think he's got solid body control. He jumps well. His zone coverage, he's very good as well. He's got pretty solid range there. But yeah, like I said before, awareness I think is an issue.
Mhm.
Uh I think injuries, he missed time in both 2018 and 2019 seasons. He did play all the games this past year, but he does have an injury history. Also, his brother was an absolute bust, Obi Melifonwu, who was a
Yeah.
second round pick, who probably was the best athlete on that draft. He probably had the best combine in that draft, and he's now like he's on a future contract with the Niners, but he played the same position. He played safety, I believe, and he did not turn out. So obviously, you don't want to judge players off of their brothers, but it's just injury history is quite a problem that I have.
Yeah, at the end of the day, for me, Ifeatu Melifonwu was just a big guy who can move, and he can move pretty well. So that's what I like from his game. And now going to some sleepers, and he's not a sleeper for me. I have Paulson Adebo at number 7, so he just missed our consensus top 10 because you haven't seen him yet, Amal. Just a quick crash course on him. I have him as a second round corner. 6'1", 198 pounds, so 200 pounds essentially. He is everything that Tyson Campbell should be that he isn't essentially. If you want Tyson Campbell, you want him to use his speed better. Paulson Debo just does that. If you want him to cover better, Paulson Debo does that. If you want him to have better hips, Paulson Debo has that. If you want him to be able to recognize these routes better, Paulson Debo has that. The only thing Paulson Debo doesn't have is, I think, at some points similar to a Caleb Farley, where he gets a bit too over aggressive and he'll bite on double moves. Only problem with Paulson Adebo is that he doesn't have the recovery speed of a Caleb Farley, so he can't make up for that. But otherwise, I really like him. He's a very good coverage corner. He just needs to be more consistent when it comes to biting on these double moves. And also, similar to Tyson Campbell, same flaw, just getting his head around and playing the ball. But Paulson Debo, for me, is just a way better version of Tyson Campbell in every single aspect.
Yeah, so my sleeper was Tay Gowan, the other UCF corner. So I was high on both the UCF corners, Aaron Robinson and now Tay Gowan. So for me, his first strength with me, he's got his coverage skills are incredible. I saw him uh cover the three. He played cover three a lot, and he covered very good receivers very well. So he covers tight ends well as well. Um he's got great size, great length. Uh and I think he has he has chances to make, like, he's very good at breakup plays, Areeb. So that's what I also saw at the game. So like when the ball was in the air, he'd he recorded 7 breakups, 2 picks on just 50 targets. That's very good, I'd say. Um, the weaknesses, of course, that I saw in his game, though, he was quite slow coming off the route. So coming off the first route, I also think that he relies a little bit too much on the length. So sometimes he overestimates where the ball is going. So as a result, sometimes he wouldn't end up getting anything, and the dude would just catch it and go for the touchdown. So sometimes he relies on his length too much at the catch point. But I think he's a very intriguing cornerback. He played JUCO and then transferred over at UCF, so not too much experience there playing at an elite level, at a high level, I should say. So it's definitely a project player that you're looking at when you're seeing Tay Gowan, but he has potential as well to be a pretty solid corner in this league.
Yeah, I agreed with everything you said there. Now we can finally move on to our last position group. And spoiler alert for all those people who didn't like who are watching this, don't roast us. But me and Amal literally watched like all the corners that the other person didn't watch, essentially. Like I've watched Ardarius Washington and I've watched Tyree Gillespie. He hasn't, but he's watched Andre Cisco and Talawano Hufanga and Javon Holland. So this consensus list is going to be a bit whack, but it is what it is. So number one, I have Richie Grant at 1. You have him at 2. Richie Grant is the best free safety in this year's class. A great tackler, has the range. For me, he's a round 2 player. I don't think any of these safeties are round 1 players. Richie Grant, though, if you want someone to give you range and the ball skills and the ability to bait these players, there's one play I saw where I was lucky enough to see an all 22. I found the footage on YouTube where he's completely baiting this quarterback. He's on the right hash and he baits this guy. He sees the guy about to throw it and he books it. He just runs across the entire field to the left sideline and gets an interception. And I just didn't see any other cornerbacks making that. So that's why I have him at number 1. I just think he's the most elite free safety and the most elite safety in this year's class. I sort of put him sort of like to the likes of I compare him to a Grant Delpit from last year from LSU, where I think he was definitely a round 2 player as well. He had some great range. And I think, yeah, that's what you're getting. You're getting a really great rangy safety with ball skills. And I mean, that's all you need. You need picks. And I think Richard Grant can give you picks.
Okay, so as a free safety, he'd be my number 1. But that my weaknesses with him, obviously, he needs to do a better job of knowing his assignment.
He does like freelance a little bit.
Yeah, so that I think so there were times that he had blown coverages. Also he's not like as a safety, he's pretty average as like an athlete, athletic on the athletic standpoint. He has pretty tight hips, so his change of direction isn't the best. And his athleticism, yeah, I'm not necessarily a fan of the athleticism that he brings. But he has great ball skills. You can see that on display. So I mean, I watched a lot of UCF film clearly with my two corners that are there that I mentioned beforehand. And once he gets to the catch point, he's able to not just he's able to pick off passes very well. Similar to Tay Gowan. And I think Richie Grant also uses his awareness is very good. And zone coverage, he's very good as well. But yeah, like I said, the weakness is his athleticism isn't there. And I think there are times that he's gone through he's had blown coverages because of basically, like you said, mental lapses in his game. Also, he's also quite old, Areeb. He's played 5 years and he's had 5 years of college, which is interesting. He's had 4 years at UCF, and he also did I believe he also what's it called? He I'm blanking out. He went to another school. Actually, no, he did just go 5 years at UCF. So I think that's the other weakness. But yeah.
Fair enough. I just think we're going to compare him to Trayvon Moore, who's your number one. He's my number three. He's our consensus number two. Trayvon Morg is just a way better athlete than Richie Grant, and he's the best athlete in this year's safety class by probably a larger margin. He has the speed, the range, the instincts. I just think when it came to being, I think you would say he's probably more of a strong safety than a free safety. And I think when he was lined up against some of these players, I remember maybe it was the first couple of games I watched him, he was just getting like cooked just on one-on-one coverage. And I just think he wasn't that best in that aspect. And I think he got a bit too aggressive. And I just think the way I look at Trayvon Morg, I think he's really good. I just don't think he's elite at anything versus where I think Richie Grant and spoiler alert, Darius Washington, the other TCU safety, I think both those guys are elite at being free safeties and picking off balls. I don't think Trayvon Morg is elite at anything. I think he's just a very well-rounded player. I think you could say he's not a jack of all trades. He's a jack of all trades, but a master of none. Rather, he's not the best at anything. He's just a very good player. He's probably a top 50 player for me. I'm not as high on him as other people are.
So for me, I actually have him as a top 20 player. And he's my number one safety, of course. He's got excellent versatility. He's got great instincts as well. He's smooth. He's fluid. He has great anticipation as well, Areeb, from what I've seen in film. Improvements that can be made. Yeah, he has a couple of how do you say he has a couple of big hit or misses. So I saw that that he could sometimes like try to wrap up too early, and then as a result he gives up on the play and it becomes a big play and ends up being a touchdown. So I saw that. On top of that, he's his tackling, he needs to improve on tackling. I think that was another area of concern that I had for him. But I think overlooking all of that, though, I think he's the most complete safety, and I think he's got everything that you're looking for at that position. And yeah, that's why I'm higher on him than higher on him. So we can that's why he's
and this
my
safety class, I think Amal, you'd agree with me. This safety class is weaker than previous safety classes because I don't think there's a top 10 player in this class from the safety position versus like a Minka Fitzpatrick from previous classes or a Derwin
That's
James.
fair. Yeah, that's
Yeah.
fair.
So I just have a round two grade on all these guys pretty much essentially. Now our consensus number three would be Darius Washington. You haven't watched him, but I'm just going to tell you about him. Darius Washington. He is a 5'8" corner. Sorry, a 5'8" safety rather, 180 pounds. He's just Antoine Winfield all over again, essentially. This guy, he's similar to Nick Bolton, I guess you could say, or even like a Jeremiah Owusu-Koramoah. He just knows where the ball is going, and he's just always there. And he picks off a ton of balls. Again, another free safety type. And versus, I think I have him higher than Trayvon Moore because I think he's elite at that skill. He knows how to pick off passes and he knows how to be an elite free safety. And I think he's also just a better tackler. So an athlete, when it comes to an athletic profile, Trayvon Moore is definitely better. But I think from production and what I saw on film, I just liked Darius Washington more in that regard. Our consensus number 4 is Javon Holland. You can talk all about him because I haven't seen him.
Yeah, so Javon Holland, for me, he's probably the most unique defensive back because he can play anything. He can play nickel corner. He can play deep safety. He can play outside corner. He can do anything you want, and he's very good at zone coverage. So his awareness, keeping an eye on the ball, he's very strong at that. I think that's probably his strongest skill set. Um, but he has had nine interceptions in 2 years, which is pretty good, I'd say. And he's very good at the catch point, and that's why I have him as my number 3 safety. And the weaknesses, of course, that are there with him, his speed isn't like that great. So I guess that could be a potential red flag. And I think he does miss tackles. I guess that's another problem. So he does a lot of broken tackles sometimes. But yeah, overall, Javon Holland is definitely a very versatile player that can play multiple different positions as a defensive back. So yeah, that's why he's my number 3 safety.
My number 5 guy would be Jamar Johnson out of Mizzou. Again, or yeah, out of Indiana rather.
Yeah, Indiana.
He's he's just another free safety type of guy. You can see where I'm definitely leaning here. I just maybe it was just bad luck, but I just watched like every single free safety other than Javon Holland. I just like all these free safeties, and that's why I'm higher on them than most people. But Jamar Johnson out of Indiana, he has the ability to bait these guys and force them to make bad throws. He's a great, very smart, instinctual, strong safety, a free safety rather, 6 foot, 205 pounds. My only flaws with him, I mean, he has the range, he has the blitzing ability, he has everything you want from a free safety. He just doesn't have that elite speed, and you saw him getting burnt a couple times down the field because he lacks that deep speed. But just as someone who I know can mess with the quarterback, I think Jamar Johnson is one of the best in this year's class.
Yeah, so Jamar Johnson was actually a sleeper pick for me, so I actually agree with everything that you said there. Um, I had Talanoa Hufanga as my number 4 safety, I believe. Uh, he's got great strength, great size, great coverage skills altogether. He's very versatile as well. My only thing with him, I compared him actually to like a Bob Sanders. I believe when we talked about him as sleeper players that we had in our NFL draft. The dude hits hard, Areeb, and he's just an absolute beast. My only weaknesses with him is injury prone. He has missed a lot of time, and I think if he didn't miss time and he kept on showing out his talent, he could honestly be the best safety in this class. But he hasn't. He's missed a lot of time here, and his athleticism isn't necessarily top tier. So that's the only things that are holding back Talanoa Hufanga out of USC.
Okay, my number 5 guy, Terry Gillespie out of Missouri. So played with Nick Bolton. He's a round 3 guy for me. Again, another free safety. Same things with Jamar Johnson. He can mess with the quarterback. I think he has a better speed and range than Jamar Johnson. I just think Jamar Johnson might be a bit smarter than him when it comes to just football IQ. But again, he has the instincts. He knows how to fool these guys rather. I mean, he's a free safety. He picks off passes and he loves contact, and he likes I sort of putting his head down and tackling people. That being said, he is a bit lighter. I believe he's at 200 pounds. So I think he can work on being a bit more consistent as a tackler. But overall, I like Tyree Gillespie, and I think he can cover a lot of people on one-on-one coverages as well, bracket coverages, all that fun stuff. I think Tyree Gillespie gives you a really, really strong contributor from day one. I think as a safety, I think he can be a day one starter. But yeah, I think your number 5 guy was Andre Cisco, right? I'm also you can go
Yeah,
for it, man.
yeah. Andre Cisco, safety out of Syracuse. Very athletic. He's quite rangy as well. He can play over the top in the box or in the slot. He's an excellent man coverage. He's got fluid hips, so his change of direction is very good. Um, yeah, he's a ball hawking safety, honestly. And the only weakness that I guess really have with him tackling, he can't his tackling skills need to improve. He's missed too many tackles for me, and but I mean he is very aggressive, and sometimes he can be too aggressive, overly aggressive. But I think his strengths are just like, is in my opinion, his strengths outweigh his weaknesses. He can be he can be an excellent corner because of his aggressiveness when the ball is in the air, and yeah, his ability to extend range is just quite special, in my opinion. So I can honestly see him being a day 2 pick here.
Fair enough. Any other things you want to say before we head out of here, Amal? Really long podcast, a bit shorter than last time though, but still, I think we covered a good amount of prospects. But yeah,
Yeah.
anything you want to say before we head out of here?
No, I think we covered all the players that'll most likely be drafted in the first 2 days. Some maybe in day 3, early day 3, but I think this gives a good idea of who the top players in this draft class are. So looking forward to the draft. It's 1 week from today, the day we're recording on Thursday, April 22nd. So looking forward to having this draft. We'll probably record one more podcast before the draft, and that'll be our final mock draft. And then on draft night, we'll anticipate to probably have a podcast as a reaction, similar to what we did last year, a reaction to all of our first round picks.
The 1 a.m. podcast, baby. It's
Yes,
gonna
yeah.
happen.
So last year, the shock of the night was probably CeeDee Lamb falling to the Cowboys, and of course Jordan Love getting picked, trading up for Jordan Love, and then of course Jalen Reagor being picked over Justin Jefferson. Those were probably the shocks of the night last year. This year, there can be way more. We will see. But yeah, that's all I gotta say.
Yep, that is it from Amal, and that is the same thing from whatever he just said. Just copy it word for word. The draft is the week from now, and I'm hyped. And this draft is going to be bonkers, Amal, because there's a lot of teams that could do a lot of different things up high at the draft. Starting at like number 2, like Zach Wilson might not even go number 2. Who knows? It's projected, but has Joe Douglas, the GM of the Jets, actually told anybody? No. I mean, just before we head out, I think people need to realize this. Like all the rumors are only rumors. Baker Mayfield wasn't even like the quarterback who was being talked about for the Browns until the GM at the time. I forget his name, dude, but the GM literally didn't tell anybody until like the week of the draft. He's like, actually, I think I'm going to draft Baker Mayfield. And that changed everyone's. That was the week of the draft. Everything changed. And who knows? Maybe Justin Fields ends up going to number 2. Who knows? But this draft can be very wild, and I'm extremely excited. But that is it for us. Thank you for watching this. Like it, do all that fun stuff. Subscribe. Thanks for watching and listening. Peace out and bye.